What's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? What's going on? It's your man Kyle Leaf Wins for another great episode of the Making Better Track Show. I'm here with the homie who I've known for over 20 years, so this is a different type of interview, a different type of vibe. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to Ronnie Notch in the house. Now, for those who don't know, and they should know, Ronnie Notch is a St. Louis native, music industry businessman, music producer, and tech co-founder of Breach. Breach is a global platform for creative expression and social impact that connects students, educators, innovators, and entrepreneurs with audiences and opportunities from around the world. And they're also a leading provider of pre-K to 12 curriculum, VR/MR experiences, and community and corporate partnerships because their strategic approach creates a ripple effect that transforms entire communities and shapes future in education worldwide. Also, Ronnie Notch is the producer of tracks by the artist Corey4. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Big Knock single right now. Go stream it right now on all platforms. And if you're just like me and you remember the song Thick With It, Ronnie Notch produced that for Hakeem the Dream. Everybody give it up for Ronnie Notch right now in the house. You feel what I'm saying?
Man. Check is in the mail. Check is in the mail. Man.
Hey, listen, 20 years in the making, this is crazy. We used to talk like this before streaming was a thing, literally in the early 2000s, not to show too much of the age. You know what I'm saying? Not to show too much of the age.
We did that while eating Little Caesars pizza. So.
And strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts.
100%.
100%, man. I see you got the MPC key right there next to you. You have a magnificent looking studio right there next to you. But other than that, how are you doing right now in these current production times, streaming times, and tech times? How are you doing?
You know what? Tiff and I are doing great, man. It's exciting right now. Because you know, like it's dope to have this conversation with you because you get it. You actually inspired a lot of this. So you know, wherever the applause is, let's make sure we get that for you too. But we
that's
appreciate it.
Quick applause in and out.
We're excited, man. It's the best time to be in this, right? Because there are no boxes. The stuff that we used to dream about and talk about, it's here or it's like right there in the horizon. So this is that time when if you have a vision, for it to materialize is right now. So, you know, we look at it, a lot of people are running crazy right now because they don't know what to do. And I think that's going to be the ultimate separator from not just those that have the talent, but also the know-how on how to actually make the bigger happen. At Breach, we say create across domains and experience everything. That's what we're doing right now, man.
And I wish that a lot of producers shared that mentality because there seems to be some sort of real prevalent fear and pessimism regarding music producers embracing tech, new music producers having the desire to understand tech, but most importantly, music producers understanding the new great business models. And like you put it, there is no box. And I actually posted something, and I'm going to do a video on this later, but I asked producers, I say, why is there such a large degree of pessimism of music producers and artists thinking that there aren't any full-time business opportunities, whereas there are a lot of producers and artists embracing tech to get those opportunities? And when I tell you the amount of sarcasm and pessimism versus open-ended mindset, I don't understand why people don't think out the box, out the norm.
People are used to being limited, man. And this is that true moment that shows, hey, if you've just been kind of coasting, like doing this because you don't have passion or you don't have talent beyond what loop you drag down, like, damn, my bad,
For real.
I get it. But if you don't have it past that, it's kind of like, why are you here? There really isn't space for you because you can't think and the talent isn't there. So this isn't your market anymore. Just to be blunt, like it's not.
No, it's called evolution. Either evolve or die business-wise.
Yeah, like I'm not outside selling Walkmans anymore. You know what I mean? And that's just what this is. And I do think for the people that do have it, because we focus on the positive, the people that do have it, I find trouble staying asleep at night because at 2:30 I get an idea. And then I don't want to wake the whole house and come up here in the studio and do something or think something through. So my note app in my phone probably has 100 gigs of just ideas and notes. And Tiff and I go back and share. I'm saying it, but Tiff is my wife and co-founder of Breach,
yes,
that makes all the wheels turn better than me. But it's like we're thinking about not just music and how to make music sound better. How are we even digesting music? We're on forecast for the next big thing, right? If you look at the time, you look at from vinyl to 8-track to cassette to CD to MP3 to kind of physical MP3 with like the hit pocket thing. And then you look at the MP3 player to the phone. We're on forecast for the next thing. And what is that next thing? Like, we have an idea of what it is. So we're building towards that.
But see, your mindset is like mine's. We can't go to sleep a lot at night because our mind run because we have a constant pursuit, internal drive. And I think a lot of producers, just a lot of people in general who don't want to evolve or have a resistance or aversion to evolve is that they don't have a hunter's mentality. They have a consumer mentality. And I tell a lot of my friends, can stop consuming, start creating, and analyze the data from what you're creating when you put it out there. And I have a big saying to all music producers. I say this a lot. I post this literally like 100 times a month on different platforms. Release the beats from your hard drive, release the projects. Stop sitting on old ideas, because when you release old ideas, you get data the same way that if you plant a seed, you see what type of tree will grow and what type of fruit will come from it. And that's why I'm glad I have you on this show, because you've always been an open mindset next person. And in fact, when we first met, Napster came out. And remember how our college campus was when people went from, wow, I can get free music that I can download instead of paying $15 for a CD. And how that we were there when it changed the whole dynamic, the whole business market.
Or that free computer they used to put in the room.
Oh my God. I had Fruity Loops on that computer. And I think you like Fruity Loops. I hated it.
I hated Fruity Loops. And I think, learned how to use it together. Remember, I had that Roland MPC 505 Groove Box.
But you used to knock things out of that Groove Box.
Man, I appreciate. My first placement came from that. That was a song with Corrupt and his brother Roscoe or something like that. Like my very first placement came from that Groove Box.
Wow.
But that said, I remember that with those computers. And I remember wanting to download, what was it? Drop It Like It's Hot. And I remember having to wait 2 days to get it
because we had like basic modem speed on those computers.
And it was but it felt so good when you hit ding and you get the file and it wasn't Bill Clinton's voice. Like I 100% remember that. But it was I think that was that moment that kind of triggered that. And I don't know if you're gonna talk about it, if I'm gonna talk about it, but that was one of those moments that was like, man, I don't think we need to be in Ohio anymore. We probably need to be in Asia.
Yeah.
And and looking at not just the tech from a software perspective, but from a hardware perspective. Again, a lot of this limitless thinking that we've built Breach to be, like you don't do 44 countries and 3.6 million students in 10 years by thinking in the box, right?
You better talk that, Notch. You better talk that. You better listen, share the accolades. It's not conceit when it's fact. Continue.
But the accolade is this: we've never charged a student. Like, we can say that, and we've never charged a student. So I look at the students as benefited from all different levels. And the truth is, and I'm so glad I get a chance to say this today with you right here, because you come up in all the talking points and interviews. It's two people. My friend Tim, that found an old turntable in the house my mom moved in after my parents got divorced, that introduced me to DJing. And then it's you. Because at that moment, it was like, it's okay to think bigger. It's okay to be in a place where you understand you may have outgrown the thinking of your surrounding. And you were the only person that I could talk to 20 plus years ago who even thought bigger than me. You know what I mean? And like, I've always appreciated it. I got to send you some of those clips. They're like, who is Frank at this point? Because it gets brought up. It gets brought up so much. That's one of those moments.
I appreciate it. Like I told you then, I'll tell you now. Just think about it. You come from a war-ridden neighborhood in Brooklyn to the woods in Ohio, and we get 3 free meals, and we're not getting shot at every day. To me, I was like, bro, if this can happen, then anything can happen. I was like, bro, I was getting. My phone was tapped the year before I went to that school. Like, I went to so many funerals. I've seen so much violence. And then I'm in a cornfield with a bunch of other historically black college students. And I'm like, y'all tripping. We get 3 free meals a day and there's no NYPD busting down the doors like at 3 a.m.? Y'all tripping. But I want to get to a lot of that because I want to actually talk about Breach and the transition from your production love to Breach and then right back into production and how you interweave that, because I believe that a lot of your journey from then till now, and then your future aspirations are going to really be a benefit for anybody who watches this, especially when I clip this up, because I'm going to be clipping up this interview and posting everywhere, because I believe that producers need to think out of the box and understand that you are a curator and you can create in different facets. But I have one segment of my show that I like to do is lightning round of questions. You're going to like this area, and let me hit you with questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind in the first 10 seconds. All right, number one, what is your favorite production gear of all time and why?
All time Phantom X6.
Really?
All time.
I'm going to get to that after this. Second question, what was the first piece of gear or software that you used that really got you so excited that you got lost in that gear or software?
It's equal. Like Yamaha keyboard and Magic's Audio Studio.
Magic's Audio Studio, my God, that was clutch back then.
Yeah.
All right. If you can go back in time to when you first started producing, what was your dream setup that you can get, but we both know we couldn't afford it at that time?
What's behind me right now? SSL and MPCs and now Machina. But back then, it was crazy. I wanted a Neve board in my room. I know.
No, we want it now as adults, like, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you a question. If you were on a desert island and you only had 2 pieces of gear and you had to produce a series of albums for, like, let's say Interscope, what would be those 2 pieces of gear to help you be more optimal and why?
Does a computer count?
Yeah, it counts.
P61 and MacBook.
For real?
P61 and MacBook.
With software on the laptop.
Oh, that counts? Okay. Logic.
Oh man, I gotta talk to you a little bit about Logic. last but not least, what new innovations should artists and producers really pay attention to in this current era and why? It's a good question.
Spatial audio and binaural audio.
Why?
If you're not creating while you're thinking about that, you're already behind. I mean, look at Netflix, look at VR, look at mixed reality experiences. They require more than 2-channel stereo.
I've never thought about that. That's why you like using Logic. Doesn't Logic have spatial audio technology?
That's why you got 13 speakers in this room.
Wow, wow. Listen, thanks for doing that lightning round real quick. Let's get to the ish right quick. Number one, why Logic? And the only reason I'm asking this question, because I used to be on Logic like 10 years ago. Then I went to Ableton, fell in love, and now I'm kind of out of love with Ableton. No offense, God bless. Everybody who uses Ableton 12 that just came out, God bless you. But what creates the comfort level in Logic for you? Because I'm strongly considering downloading it on my Mac.
Well, I will say this. I grew up with Pro Tools. The studios in St. Louis. Ade had some Pro Tools, right? Watching like J.E. and Wally make Nelly's album and all that, and the Lunatic stuff back then. So I thought that was it. MPC, a Triton, and Pro Tools. And I realized that as I got older and started producing, my learning curve required something a little bit different. And true story, Tiff was in the delivery room with our oldest in 2013. And I had got Logic in 2012. And I basically was like, I really just need to do some of this nervous energy. So I fired up the MacBook and I opened up Logic for like the first time in like a year or something like that. And I don't know if it was the nervousness of the delivery about to happen and her telling me to go do this, I didn't get on her nerves. But at the end of the day, Logic started flowing for me. And since that day in 2013, it's just been flowing. It's just been a flowing thing. Last year, because Tiff uses Ableton. So last year I see her making something on Ableton. And I'm like, I should really just flip over to Ableton. But then a lot of the artists and reference singers I work with and we work with use Logic. And when we would get Logic sessions back, it was just an easy open to be able to do it. I personally know the workflow of Logic better than I do Pro Tools or Reason, because I was using that forever. it's just a personal choice. But I almost switched over to Ableton. They just took forever to send out that push 3. So I was like, I'm just gonna stay here.
You listen, and I'm a big proponent of use whatever you're the most comfortable at and that create the most output. So for anybody watching, it's like, oh my God, listen, this ain't about DAW wars. This is about comfort wars.
Mhm.
Let's fight the battle of let's see what can get the idea out of my mind as quick as possible that I can lay down. Like I've lived in Ableton for over 12 years. I love Ableton. I've DJ'd with Ableton. I've done everything with Ableton, and I think that at my creative level right now, I think I've exhausted it. Like I love simpler in Ableton. I build custom drum racks. I sell presets off of Ableton. Like I've done it all, but I still miss Logic's native plugins that are in it. I like the reverbs in Logic, and then the new features that they have, AI mastering. I'm like, oh, this is a quick reference track before I assume anything. I like that. I sample Alchemy. Sample Alchemy reminds me of like old granular synths and
Yep.
things of that nature. I love a lot of the Logic plugins, and I really love that. And it's in the Mac. I have a Mac, so why not? Like and the thing I loved about the Mac platform, if I purchased it, no matter how long ago, I can just re-download it right onto my computer.
That was my point I was going to next. When we started looking at Dolby Atmos in 2021, 2022, like in terms of really getting into it, it was right there. It came with an update. So the Dolby renderer and all of that is built into it. I purchased that in 2012. It's 2024. My $200 purchase back then still works today. In this market, that's unheard of. Like if I did that with Pro Tools, I'm paying a subscription. You know what I mean? And that's not a knock towards them. I think that's dope. But I just like how whenever I update my Mac, I know Logic is going to sound as well too because it's proprietary to Mac. So
There's another content creator that I'm really good friends with. His name is DC Carson Music. He'd always say when he would see the DAW wars or the MPC debates online and things of that nature, he's from Alabama. He would say, listen, if you in the country and you need to get through a field, nobody's gonna care what type of axe you use. Can that axe chop down what you need to chop down to get through that field? I don't care what axe you use. The DAWs, the MPCs are an axe. Let me ask you a question for those producers who are uninitiated in the mentality, because I want to start here, get to the MPC, then get to tech. How can Dolby Atmos really enhance a producer's or workflow, especially if they're professional producers? 'Cause we're not speaking just to the hobbyists, we're speaking to the professional working producers.
I will tell you this: over the last 2 years or so, we have a unique partnership with now the UFL Battlehawks, right? And that created an opportunity to knowing when you're sitting down to make music on this, or we got a complete control down here, all that. Like you have to step into the mindset knowing your music is first being played in stadiums, and whatever opportunities come from that. But first, you need to fill out an entire stadium thinking about how the reverb is going to sound and, echoes and vocals. So you go into it knowing that there's going to be vocals going over your head to the left or left center, all of these other places. For me, it creates it as to where I have to have that in my head before I even play the first chord or drum or 808 or anything. I have to be thinking about the spatial and how much space different elements are going to be. And then, you look at the trends, like as I mentioned, like you look at Netflix, you look at these things, VR headsets and all this stuff. Like when you put the headset on, there's sound everywhere. It's a spatial headset. So if I'm really thinking about creating for the future, and if I call myself a producer that looks beyond what is going on today, you got to look at where it is. Like music, if no one else ever streamed my music today, and I only did music for movies and for VR experiences, then I have to create music that fits that. If I'm only making elevator music, I better know everything about the speakers that are in the elevator. So it's the same thing,
And you're describing the mentality of somebody that started off in production that grew and evolved, keyword of the day, ding, evolved into tech, being a tech professional. So for all the viewers out there, can you please explain that journey from production to tech and still within production and how you encompass all those areas?
Mine was different. Moved back to St. Louis from Ohio in 2006. Focus was on, gave myself a year to get a song on radio. It happened in 6 months, which was tough back then. Because 2006, like this was still Nellyville, literally. You know what I mean? And radio was even worse. Like, there's no money when you're coming home as a broke college kid.
You better preach. Go ahead.
And radio was a different beast. There was no Apple Music and Tidal and all these other things. So that happened, and we hit Billboard. And I tell you this just to say this: we hit Billboard independently. That made me want to be able to tell people how to not hit their head in the way I hit my head from '04 to like top of '07. Like, it was a lot of hitting my head. That led over to like volunteering at schools, seeing kids have these dreams and aspirations, and seeing teachers that have no idea how to even get them there. And then I would meet adults and college students too who had no idea, but they had these dreams. So I wanted to take the things that went wrong with me and create a pathway to make it easier for them. And then I met Tiff, and we met in the studio, and she had
a music love story. Continue.
It's crazy. But we met, and she had her own pitfalls. Like, she's product of two traveling singing parents. Like, both of her parents were on tour with very different, dad R. Kelly, mom John P. Key. So you put that together. But we both shared that passion in regards to how do you make it better for the next generation. Walked into Microsoft to buy an Xbox. Had a conversation with Trina Claggett. It's three people: Tim, Trina, Frank, that put this together. Trina was like, "What you all want to do is beautiful. Why don't you just host it at the Microsoft store?" So then it became this thing where we built this company under the very big wing of Microsoft. So it became this mission of teaching kids and being able to allow them to avoid hitting their head the way that we did, while building a company in the shadow of Microsoft. So we knew processes, we knew how to make things work, how to scale, because we went from one store to 83 stores in like 12 months. You know what I mean? So while doing that, we got a chance to see all the beta tech, all the unreleased tech, all the things that still have never come out. And that made us realize it's music has to be the foundation, but if we're really going to do something big and impactful, it has to be more than music for kids that look like us or for kids that come from circumstances that aren't the best, because you have to make them viable candidates in this ever-changing world. And that's how Notes for Life was started. We transformed into Breach after we pulled all of our programming out the Microsoft stores, which is a whole different story.
This is breach.com for the uninitiated, but continue.
Yeah. So we pulled all our programming out, became Breach. And just recently, like 2019, 2020, got into the mode where we were like, music is our foundation. Why are we not addressing that enough? And I mean, it's exciting. It's an exciting year is what I would say.
But that's what I'm saying. This is why this is beneficial. You took your passion, which is production, and that passion led you to another space where you can utilize that passion and then grow and then to help people. And I think the big thing that I heard from what you said, mind you, because I'm a business dude mentally, the fact that you were to scale at that volume, how did you attribute your efforts to create that degree of scale at that time?
Wait, say that one more time. Make sure I heard you right.
The fact that you scaled to that many stores in 12 months. Because to me, off the top of my head, my thinking was they found, a solution, and you actually breached and built the gap with that.
You put that together really well. People don't get that, but that's what it was. We breach every sector that we need to be in. But the way that we did it was we looked at it. What would it take to scale? Well, we can't hire that many people. Microsoft already had the employees. So that meant the one thing we had to do was create the training manual. If they can come in and do trainings like they typically do on Sunday mornings, Monday mornings, whatever, before the store is open, because the stores were everywhere. And those stores are they put the stores based off where the most online sales were happening, like in 2012, 2013. So they already have a retail mentality of I need to sell a product. We needed them to sell a free product, because the free product that they're selling, which was our programming at that point, led people back into stores, which they needed to have more foot traffic in their stores. So creating the training manual on our curriculum doubled as a way to bring people who weren't going to go into those stores anyway to come into the stores and buy the products that were $199 and less. And then if they get the products that are $299 or more, $499 or more, or a laptop or an Xbox or a game, that's just an extra bonus. And then we were able to take some of that data, look at when our programming was in their stores. Like, we were in New York, we were in LA, we were in all points in between, Australia, London, wherever there were flagship stores. And you can get some of that data about, hey, during this peak time when our program is going on, what do the sales look like? Oh, wait a minute. So we actually have value. So that means when we're bringing people in and they're spending money everywhere, we can say, okay, well, it's not just Microsoft that's valuable. Everyone knows that. We're valuable too. And I think, and we still work very closely with them, but it was time to kind of invest in self at that point and figure out we're not a Microsoft product. So since we're not a Microsoft product, we're not getting Microsoft revenue. So let's pull our programming and see how we can do it. And we took our curriculum and programming, put it all online. Everyone thought we were dead underwater for 2 years, but we were just strategic. We said, okay, well, let's not be in all 83 markets anymore. What were our strongest markets? What were our community relationships, teachers, students? Pandemic hit, sucked for everybody. But for us, we were the only entity that had pre-K through 12 curriculum online and ready to go. So December 2019, we had 400,000 students in maybe 12 or 13 countries. December 2020, we were at 1.6 million students in about 20 countries. And to date, 3.6 million, 44, almost 40, 44 or 46, depending on how we look at it, 44, 46 countries. That's just looking at the forecast of where tech is going and being sure of yourself. Like, as a producer, you have to be sure of yourself with what you're composing, right? This was just another level of being sure of yourself because you're doing it for a right reason, and you're also doing it for a reason that can be monetized. It's a smart business move, and it gives you an opportunity to be impactful in the areas you need to be impactful.
It's funny as I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking in my mind, like, this skill set of strategic analysis, market analysis, and and scaling in the stores and things of that nature, and how you think about your business as you explained your journey, literally just reminds me of your thinking when it came to studio management. Like, you just never played. Like, when it came to like running a session, exporting things, your mindset, how can we grow? How can we grow? How can we grow? It seems like a lot of your business acumen was birthed from your production-based discipline.
100%.
And I think, like, I'm hearing you talk and I'm like, this is how he problem solves in the studio. This is how he problem solves with music.
And it sucks because I don't get a chance to work with everybody. Like, as people I want to work with, and then I see just how much they're not doing in the time that we need it done. And it makes a relationship sour. I hate to say that, but it's a gift and a flaw at the same time. There is no time to not be urgent, especially in the studio's dollars. Like, studio in New York, I don't want to talk about that. There's a studio in New York, $800 an hour. I don't need you to learn what to do when we get there. I need you to be fully aware of what's going on weeks leading up to it.
And I don't think that's the flaw. I don't think that's a flaw on your part. And again, I told you before we started recording the show, there are hobbyists and there are professionals. And I told you, I said, I had a conversation with my wife this morning. I was like, wow, I'm not crazy. My work ethic, my desire to win, my output, my constant thinking about stuff like this at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning can only run on 4 hours of sleep. I've not slept 8 hours in a minute. Because that's how I was like, is my ADHD a blessing? I was like, it is, because everybody does not want it as bad as they say they post online about it. A lot of producers, they would rather spend 2 hours complaining on the internet with posts versus mastering their craft, getting out of the house and networking and putting in work. And I think you mentioned it earlier when we tried the Napster conversation. You were like, oh man, I forgot how you worded it because you said it so well. I'll run it back in a clip later, but you literally have built skill upon skill upon skill and grew. And look what you said. You went through your ups and downs and things of that nature. I want to get to this good question. What was the worst up and down that you went through business-wise that became the best lesson that you still implement to this day in your business?
Oh, I love that you asked that one. This is the one I love telling. Not knowing publishing. not knowing music publishing. Like when you're young, when you're like 20, 21, I was around you when this was going on, and people really didn't know. I was sending beats off maybe like 2005, 2006, top of 2007. Remember I mentioned that, like the pitfall of 2007. I didn't know publishing. And when you're young and you meet people who are in positions, it's their job to exploit you. There was a great guy I met by the name of Ron Scott that used to be at Def Jam. He used to come to St. Louis. When St. Louis was popping, we thought we were going to get a Def Jam Midwest office. And he said, if you ever need anything, you reach out to me. And I wish I would have taken him up on that because he was sincere, and he unfortunately passed away, some years later. But he always said, never let nobody get your publishing. Well, when you're broke in the middle of Ohio, remember Little Caesars was our delicate,
Yep,
Little
$5 pies. If you know, you know.
So, okay, I'm sorry. Quick story. For those who don't know, Frank and I would get Little Caesars pizzas that were $5 and sell slices for $2.
You better preach. The hustle continues.
For $2 a piece because there was a car. And if you had a car, you could get to town. That shuttle ran twice a day. Maybe.
And he had the whip. I still listen. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm a New Yorker. I still don't know how to drive. Sad. I know.
Well, hey, look, Frank was right there. So it was like we had the whip. And we would go in town. You want food? Okay, cool. We bring the pizza back, put it in the Union, open the boxes, the money came in. So it was, so anyway, I say that to say that wasn't enough to live on, right? And when the opportunity came to be able to meet some people who can somewhat change your life, or so they say, I'm like, okay, cool. So I knew nothing about this. How I learned exporting is how I got exploited. And basically sending my stems, which I thought, okay, yeah, they need my stems, ultimately forced me to hear #1 songs that I did on the radio and got no credit or money for.
Wow.
Because, that $1,200 check that I was being sent was nothing compared to the probably $80,000, $100,000 that I should have received. Honestly, should have received if I knew what deals I was signing. There's a big difference between a royalty and a work for hire. And I didn't understand that, man. It was my own negligence. I think I was one of two people from St. Louis. So my network at first was, I don't trust anybody when I got out there. And then I was fortunate to meet you and a couple other people, but I didn't know anyone that could really guide me in that space when it came to music. And I ended up shooting myself in the foot several times with one person in particular. And that is that moment that said, I don't want anybody to ever hit their head the way that I did. Because I know what this feels like. This is the bottom of the floor, coming back home December 2006, hearing the drums that you loaded and hearing melodies that you created on radio, on 106 in Park. Like, you're hearing stuff that you did and you get nothing for it. Now I've grown past it. And because of me not understanding publishing and not wanting someone else to grow into it, Breach was born. And anything that I lost back then, we've probably recouped that times 12. You know what I mean? So you look at one trajectory and you look at another one. Yeah, that would have been cool. Would I have ever met my wife? Would we have the children we have? Will we have the impact that we've had? You know what I mean? So all in all, I'm glad it happened. But that was a moment that could have broken people, could have broken somebody.
And that's what I want to get to this point, which is a very important point in your story. And I appreciate you for sharing. You went from validated and justified bitterness to strength to propel you to a drive. And I notice a lot of producers, especially there's a ton of great producers, male and female, who have gotten royally and fiscally jerked. In layman's terms, robbed. And they stay bitter and away from the industry. There's a young lady right now posting right now. She's a producer. The label's not calling me back. This artist, I did this track. And she's actually, it's current young lady. She just posted. She says, I don't know what to do. I don't have that much money to pay for lawyers. So I might as well go on social media. Now, as for you at that time period, how did it get from hurt and pain of being fiscally robbed when it came to not knowing publishing to letting that propel you to your drive that you have to move forward to the next level? Because you have to get from that stage to a next gear.
I'm an only child, man. So, so there is no like dwelling on stuff. You know what I mean? Um, when the lamp broke in the house and it was just me, it was me. You know what I mean? There is nobody to blame it on. There is no you take the fall this time. Like so when stuff happens, I also have to fix stuff. You know what I mean? And when that happened, it was like the lamp broke. I'm gonna sit in the dark or I'm gonna figure out a way to buy a new lamp. And it's a personal choice. It sucks. It made me quite jaded for a while. Um, I used to use Notes. Tiff gives me hell about this, but I used to use Notes for Life as a safety blanket to not immerse myself in the world of music creation anymore. It's like, okay, I don't have to produce anymore.
That's a bar. Let's not move past that too quick. Say that one more time and please break that down because people can stay slumped in the comfort of what's working and move from their passion because it's fiscally working. But let's stay there, please.
I I basically been I'm in so much control when it comes to Notes for Life and Breach. It was an area that did not exist before. If you even thought about doing music, excuse me, in 2014, you were working with Apple. Excuse me, there was no Microsoft when it came to music. Like on Apple had all the ads, Apple Music, iTunes, like that's just what it was. So being able to take music to Microsoft at a point, it felt like we were bringing them something as much as they were giving us. And they treated us like that, even if it wasn't the case. So I say that to say this became so unknown in terms of what could happen that I wasn't comfortable with I wasn't comfortable not knowing how it would pan out. Whereas Notes for Life and Breach, I know how this pans out because I'm involved with every step of the way. There is no shady A&R. There is no manager waiting to take money from me. There is no label that I need to know if they're going to call me back or not. There is no artist who may or may not use this beat. There is no other producer waiting in the wing to throw a hi-hat on it and then they get a writer's credit. So maybe I cowered out a little bit. I believe in accountability. Maybe I cowered out and I was like, because you remember, I got out. I'm not sure if you know this. I got out when Keem was hot, like hot, getting label deals and offers all the time. 40 something markets independently on radio is one of those things where it's like you're making some noise. We were competing with the heavyweights at that time. And yeah, I got out because I was like, I don't like the not knowing. So that 2-3 year gap of not really being in it was for a lot of reasons. But yeah, she says it like, look at what you're doing right now since 2019 with music. What if you hadn't stopped? What if you had just pressed forward? And, what you do with kids is impactful. But what if you hadn't? Do you regret not pressing forward during those times? And ultimately, I say no, but it's a revolving question. I would just say to anybody out there, certain hurdles may come. You're not meant to jump over every hurdle that comes in life. Sometimes you have to completely knock that over because some hurdles are not meant to be jumped over. Some hurdles are stubborn and they need to be knocked on the ground. And I didn't have that back then because, you newly married, got kids. Like, let me just go ahead and just let me control the flow of the race. Let me not try to even worry about a hurdle right now.
What you said is very important because you talked about you talk about what I hear a lot of CEOs talk about in interviews. Like when I watch like a lot of old Jeff Bezos videos, a lot of old Bill Gates videos, and they always talk about, okay, when you reach this degree of success and it's comfortable and you see this much growth here, and that other area is calling you, like you can do this as well. You just have to manage it. How have you, as a producer, a tech co-founder, family man, and so many other hats that you wear, how do you achieve your work-life balance? Because there will be a lot of producers that watch this. Maybe they are married, have 2 kids, but they have this burning inside, like, yo, I have something to offer to the world. Or there's somebody that may be super young. I don't have that much experience and don't have many tools, but I have something to offer to the world. How do you deal with your work, life, business, and then music business, tech business balance?
I married the right one. I married the right one, no doubt. I will say the way that that balance works is because we work well together. Uh, somebody yesterday, we were at a press conference, and somebody yesterday said, "I don't know how you all do it because we homeschool and really unschool." So, and we knew we were doing this before Notes for Life existed. Um, you have to, I'm not saying ever put any dreams off, and I'm not saying put visions off to the side. What has helped is creating a timetable that you are comfortable with. And when I mean comfortable, you're comfortable with adjusting your own timetable because you don't know how things will explode. You don't know what's going to work, what isn't going to work. It's much like, I mean, it's crazy. In this conversation, I'm realizing a lot of stuff I hadn't really realized before. A lot of stuff that we do with Breach is just like with music. Like, you don't know which curriculum is going to just take off and help communities and students and teachers. Um, I did learn that in music before, like with the song Thick With It. Like, we didn't know it was going to take off like that. That's why the video came out a year later. You know what I mean? And I didn't want that feeling ever again, too, to be behind your own success. Like, that's a hell of a feeling because you're always playing catch up to not only yourself, but what yourself should be or could be. So when we build our programming and stuff now, it's always with the thought of build it with the understanding that this could change overnight. So are you ready before you release this to capitalize on that? So the timetable is key. Who you do work with is key. I happen to do work with my best friend. I happen to do work with my wife, and she's a million times better than me in almost every area of the things that we do. But we also offset each other. So it's not just strengths and strengths and then weaknesses and weaknesses. Like where I'm weak, she happens to be very strong and vice versa. That doesn't have to always be in a spouse. But if you choose to work with somebody, and at this culture, you have to work with somebody, they have
And
to
why not work? Why not work with a wife who's a great business person, producer, and so on and so forth? Like you have a lightning in the bottle scenario. I'm not gonna lie. Give it up for
and,
wifey. Real
and her
talk.
and her ESPN alerts go off more than mine. You know what I mean? So it works, man. It works. She's a better shot than me. We go to the range. Like it's a lot of stuff. But I say that to say I have a very, and you have to have your own code. Your code may not make sense to anybody else. My code is very simple. I don't work with people who are not in their kids' lives because they want to be.
Producers,
Um,
listen up. Producers, listen up. Keep continue.
I don't work with married people who disrespect their marriage, privately or publicly. Um, and I don't work with people who, this next one's kind of weird, but I don't work with people who are still trying to figure out what validates them. Um,
It's not weird. It
yeah,
says a lot. It says a
yeah,
lot about a person.
because if you don't know what validates you, there's not room for us to work. The whole thing with the kids and the spouses, this is an in all business has requires an expectation and a level of trust. And if you made a vow or you brought a life into this world and they don't trust you, there's no way I'm going to be able to trust you. Why
It's a
should I
fact.
even have the expectation
It's a fact.
that I can trust you? That's my fault for going into it. And the truth is, anytime I go away from my rule because I try to make an exception because oh, that's a homie, I know him for so like it crumbles. So if you make a rule, don't go against your own rule. Don't move the goalpost on your rules. Make a rule, make a code, stick to it because you got to have your own values and a lot of segments of this world that don't have that. Stick by your code, do what works for you. Nothing is one size fits all in this place. But when you make something that works for you, stick by it. And then on the other end, the validation point, that deals with music. Like, forget Breach for a second. Well, can't because music is in Breach. But what I mean is, if I get into a studio and work with somebody, or if I'm working on a project with somebody, if you're not even confident in your sound, but you praise what I'm bringing to the table, or even what Tiff is bringing to the table, or anybody's bringing to the table, why are you here? Like, if you're not confident, if you're not bringing forth the best product, even if you're mimicking me because you think that's what needs to happen, it's wasted space at that point. And I say that as gently and delicately as I can.
I don't think you should hold back. Listen, you too nice. You too nice. Maybe it's because I'm from New York. Listen, this is this simple. I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. No, if you are grimy in front of the children that you are responsible for, you will be grimy in business. If you are not faithful over what you have in your personal life, I don't care how great your acumen is, the business is going to crumble in the long run. Third, if you don't have the mental discipline internally, then why would I link my business that has a standard of discipline to something that can easily fall away? They'll love you in a studio session, say, you know what, forget it, I'm not going to move forward with the track. What? We just worked a week on it. Are you serious? You're nice. You're super nice.
No,
I'm not.
I remember when I wasn't nice, is what I'll say. And when I moved back, I wasn't allowed to be nice. That's the point. I was jaded. So I think when being jaded, I wasn't nice. And I mean, don't interview nobody that dealt me from 06 to 09. But you know what I mean? It's just like, I remember those kind of things. And it's where I am now. I guess the reason I can be nice is because I don't depend on anybody in order to get to here to there. Like, what we've built is so comfortable. It's so uncomfortably comfortable because it doesn't require more than the people who are locked into this.
Yeah, but what you've built is based on the lessons that you learned when you tried to find comfort in other sources that failed you. So what I'm looking at as a person saying, we want more control over our destiny. We want to create value in different marketplaces. Notes for Life, Breach. We want to do something that's more than just beats, spatial audio, working with teams, working with different organizations with the music. You see how the business is built upon learning from the failures, and that actually answers my earlier question. That's how you scale. You have a standard, and you draw what you attract. Whatever type of standard you have, you attract the type of standard. So you repel laziness, you repel wishy-washy mentalities. That's why you are where you're at. Now, again, for people watching this saying, oh my God, he's giving them compliments. No, look at the track record, fam.
No, I mean,
Do your Googles. Do your Googles. Hakeem the Dreams, Sick with it, Big Knock, Corey Ford, like all these partnerships are Googleable. And that's the difference between empty clout and physical manifestation is saying, I know what 2006 felt like. I know what 2007 felt like. I want more control over my destiny. I have a family. I have kids. We want to work together to build an empire to leave that legacy. And I think a lot of people aren't legacy minded. They are this current year, 2024 minded, instead of being what's going to be like when I'm not here in 21-24 for my family line.
I said it before, but I'm going to say it on camera. You got to meet B Will. I'm excited about it. And even with that, let me point that one piece out. Thick-Witted worked because of Keem's vision and passion, but B Will was just as integral.
I got words. Don't make me say unfamiliarity. I got words that I fumble, but go
ahead. He was so vital. Please edit that out. He was so vital.
Will do. Edit.
He was so vital to the success of that. So now he's VP at Battlehawks, but never left his passion at, like, I just sat there at a press conference yesterday and watched him get praised by the upper ownership of the old XFL and the old USFL came together as UFL and talk about just how important he is. And you look around like, damn, that's my inner circle. So I say that to say, this next go round, everybody has gone off and gotten their own experiences and expertise, right? And now coming together, it's just like, I remember when we were submitting Thick-Witted to go get shipped off for paper sleeves and UPCs to be put into stores and radio and all of that stuff. The game has changed. The people have changed because the people have grown. The people have, as the word of the day, evolved. But this next phase of evolution, people should really, I always get mad when people have just wasted time. Like, I don't believe in anyone just sitting doing nothing. And I'm not saying don't take time off, and all that, but always, if you don't have it figured out, you should be figuring it out. You know what I mean? And I look at just the people who I have worked well with and Tiffany has worked well with. They're the ones who have never become complacent or uncomfortable with the current versions of themselves. Don't work yourself into the ground, but at the same time, always understand, as long as you plan on living, you should always prepare for the evolution of self. And then that evolution of self should be properly yoked or matched with with a collaborative evolution
And a
because,
collaborative community of like-minded thinkers who want to evolve as well.
and I'll take it beyond that. Sometimes the best collaboration doesn't even require like-minded individuals, because that means at that point I can have a mentality brought into this that I wasn't thinking about. You know what I mean? Like, I've had some of there's one of the craziest people I've ever met did the autonomous driving capabilities for Volvo. And he's a brilliant man. He's considered one of the godfathers of VR. Okay, this is a transparent moment, and this is going to probably be something that you didn't even know. In 2016-17, we were approached by what everybody knows now as ChatGPT.
Wow.
And the idea, and I'm sure I can say this now, the idea was that ChatGPT was going to be the ultimate teacher. It would have been the standard in the classroom, where teachers no longer felt as though they were incapable of, because teachers weren't at war with students. Teachers were at war with cell phones, because when before they could say something, only thing we had to question it on was a textbook and a teacher's guide of that textbook. These students today, a teacher says something, I'm instantly going on my phone to fact check what you said. So teachers were already fighting that battle of feeling like they're becoming less valuable, which made districts and states say, well, we don't have to pay you because Google does know more than you. That's another battle that we talk about on a different day. So when ChatGPT at the time, it was something else, presented everything to us. Tiffany and I and the company had the opportunity to acquire ChatGPT.
Hold on. Maybe you didn't realize this, but you went through the hardest time of your life in 2006, 2007, and then a decade later, being approached by ChatGPT. I need you to sit with that reality.
Oh, I sit with that reality.
That's crazy to me.
Sitting with I didn't put that timeline of 06 to 07 together because I wasn't with Tiff, you know what I mean? And a lot of that's a blur on purpose. But at the same time, I didn't have the sight of knowing what that was. And you know what my thing that I said, again, I'm not without flaws. I don't see anything being bigger than Google. That was my thing. That was my thing at that point. I don't see because it was unfathomable that something could be more skilled than Google. And we were like, and then it would have cost some money. Don't get me wrong. It would have cost some money to really integrate that system. But they were able to see what we were doing with Microsoft. And I think they saw it as a way to enter schools and to be such a pivotal part in the revolution of education. We had the same education platform since the Industrial Revolution. So everybody agreed it was time to reimagine education and figure all that stuff out. We just happened to be a very visible component of what a reimagined U.S. education system looked like. So we had the opportunity to have that conversation. And I don't want to say that we just completely missed the boat. We were one of maybe 3 or 4 boats that had an opportunity to really put some funding in, but it was going to be us. I'll send you like the decks and everything. Like it was it was a certain teacher model. And we had gotten so far to even the augmented reality platform. Students have phones out anyway. You put that phone out, it's going to project this virtual teacher.
I would print out those pitch decks and put them in like a frame.
But okay. And then on the same note, we had also gotten a pitch deck from Firefest. So like we were getting crazy pitch decks at that.
That's a side-by-side pitch deck. It's like never sleep on any idea, but beware as well. How do you get from tech management to jump in the studio to create Big Knock? Like those are 2 different mentalities. Like you go, okay, I'm overseeing all of this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm having these meetings. I'm gonna go into the studio and make some tracks. Like, what led? Like, how does that work mentally? Because that's two different brains, two different emotions, two different pieces of energy.
To me, that's what's wrong with the world right now. We segment based on what we think. Like, to me, making it different is what keeps us in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Every big opportunity needs music. I don't care if you're unveiling the new iPhone. I don't care if you're unveiling deodorant. You need music. Music is just a part of what we are. So, like I said before, you got to make use of the investment of the studio, but at the same time, looking at where some of these corporations and these entities are lacking, looking at what they need before they realize that they don't have what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's where your success will be at. You have to again forecast, looking at it from a perspective of, if I go into this, it can't just be what can I get from you? It has to be, this is what I can provide to you because I see you don't have it. So it
And
does take, you know,
I'm sorry to cut you have so many questions going through my head right now. You're I'm a business guy first. We're both business guys first. We just explained that, hey, we were hustlers in college.
yeah.
Go to Little Caesars, buy a $5 piece of pie, go back to campus and flip that money. We are forecasters, we are
Right.
projectors, we're strategists. But I did why I'm not going to ask you the question of why is there such a deficit of that thinking when it comes to producers who produce hip hop and urban based music. But I'm going to ask you this, like, I'm trying to really word this the right way. I'm not trying to hold back. I'm not trying to alienate. I'm just going to be real. Why do you think a lot of hip hop based producers can get to that second gear of thinking? Why are they stuck and can't get to that forecasted strategic planning, and they just want to stay in this? I'm gonna make beats, make beats, make beats, do the same things, they get the same results, cross my fingers, hope to change. Why do you think that the mentality shift doesn't happen?
That's a loaded question.
It is.
Um,
That's why I took my time a little bit. That's why I took my time a little bit.
um, in my opinion, it's always got to be two sides of that, right? One side is that, now I'm trying to word it right. One side,
I told you.
one side is that they cannot have a vision for something that they don't even know exists.
That's
And
that's a real side.
and the reason for that is why Notes for Life even came to fruition. That's why it became not Notes for Life Arts and Technology anymore, and more so Breach, because the intersection of arts and technology, if we stayed there at only that, was going to still keep those same people that can't think beyond in that place, and that's not beneficial, because the world is, art is a big part of the world. We enjoy it, we appreciate it. Technology keeps the world going, um this world going, at least.
And you said it
And
earlier, music is in everything, but continue.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and it's a language, right? But now, after I've learned how to speak to you, with music, the mission was always clear. You get them with how they're speaking, which is the music. Because I'm not going to be able to come to you and talk to you about, hey, I really want to teach you auto machine learning. I think it's important. You need to know about IoT. These are things that I think you need to know about because you want to get a job in the future. It's similar to what we talked about before the camera started rolling. The audience you were talking to was making a certain amount of money. They're not going to be qualified. That it's not going to ever be appeasing to them to make $12.50 an hour. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So students who are in a lot of those same positions, they don't want to talk about what the job market's going to be in 10 years, even if they want to know if they'll even still be here. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to at least build a trust with you. And if you go to an isolated island and you don't know the language, you better learn the language before you get a spear through your heart. So it's
Mm.
one of those things. I got to know how to talk to you. So that's one end. They don't know it exists. The other side of that, though, is some of them are okay with knowing that it exists and thinking that it's okay for them to not take part. And I hate to say that, those are the ones I don't worry about. Like, they exist. I don't have time for the people that have the knowledge and don't care about what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's waste to me at this point of my life. That's wasted energy, because there are enough resources out there today to where that you should have more action with this knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't know about it, and it's never been presented to you, and your travel history is a 6-block radius, I'm here for you because I know you haven't been exposed to it. And let me be able to be, or let Breach be the one to be able to expose you to this from a perspective that you may have never seen before. But the people that know about it and still say they're just going to do whatever, it's like the people that see a hurricane coming and they're like, yeah,
great analogy. Great analogy.
Like I'm gonna put this board on this window and ride this one out because it has worked before. Today and before are never going to be the same thing.
That's a bar. Pause. That's a bar. That's a business bar, music production bar, life bar. That is a bar. So for translation, for those who don't know, a great line usually attributed to hip hop bass, great punchlines in songs. That's a bar. It's a quotable.
But that's where it is, man. And even starting this, we had to have that tough talk that you're gonna lose a generation. It'll be 10 years in business this October. 10 years in business.
Congratulations.
And I appreciate that because that has been a rough 10 years. Our oldest is 10 years old. He'll be 11 this year. That lets you know everything. That in itself. We knew that we weren't going to be able to save everybody, even in the schools that they're in, even when our mission was every student everywhere. So you knew that some of the people you weren't going to save, you're going into this with that understanding. It's like, shit, in some ways, it was like going to war. Like, yeah, everybody's not coming back.
Yeah, it's a war with evolving mentalities versus staying stuck in the same situation mentalities. Because you're true, because we're both educators. Like, it's so true.
100%. And we had to understand that we were late showing up to the war. You know, we got here when we got here. You know what I mean? Like, listen, here's the thing. We were leaving a war, going to war. And I mean this 100% with my body. 10 years is what we've been in business. August 9th, 2014 was the day Michael Brown changed the world. But that happened 3 blocks that way. Like, Ferguson is literally 3 minutes. I can get out of my driveway and be in Ferguson in 3 minutes. We were parts of that. Like, you talk about Google. If someone's going to Google this part, how we were at Ferguson every day with a child that hadn't even turned 1 yet. You know what I mean? While announcing Notes for Life, July 12th, 2014. So we had already announced to the world at Microsoft that we were going to do this. And then August 9th happened. So we had a social commitment, an obligation to be there, even though we had just made this big announcement of what we're going to do with Microsoft. So you can't let this new business opportunity fail, but you have an obligation to be there for a community. So then you leave that war, because it was a war. Anytime there's gas cans being thrown and people being shot in the head, my friend was shot in the head. Tiff's friend was shot in the head. You know what I mean? So you leave that war to go to the war in the classroom. And this, the systemic racist war on both sides. And you spend the first couple of weeks of class talking to students about not knowing how they're going to get home. Mm-hmm. So that drove home that passion of, you got to be there for them. You got to learn the language. You got to speak to them because they need you to trust. Like, everyone's talking about social emotional learning right now because of the pandemic. We created social emotional learning because we had to be there for those kids that were going through this. Like, literally, kids had National Guard officers in their backyards if they lived in Ferguson because they didn't know what was going to happen after the sun went down here. So that was, as much as Microsoft was embedded into the culture of Breach, so was social emotional learning before it became a cool buzzword in terms of how we teach and what we teach and who we teach it to. So that's why, I still say there's not a company like Breach, and there probably never will be, because we were birthed from the biggest corporate behemoth and the pits of hell that came after August 9th, 2014.
Well, see, this gets back to the earlier part of the conversation, how you talked about there are people that you won't work with because, like, in New York, we have a phrase, "You're not on my type of time." I'm saying there's a mentality, like, if you don't have a standard, if you're messy with this in business, especially with producers, you have to have a standard. As a producer, you have to have a standard. Who you get into business as a business person, you have to have a standard. For instance, I'll make it real simple for those watching this. Perfect example. She's gonna get mad at this. I don't care. My daughter got invited to go to another kid's party. She got mad at us last night. The party's Friday. We got the invite Thursday from a set of parents we are not familiar with. You ain't going. You ain't going. The child is like, why? Why I want to go? We don't know them. I don't know what house you're going to. I don't know these humans. Same thing for music producers when it comes to getting in business. You can have a great artist. This person can have a lot of talent, but they may be aligned with forces or people that will be bad for your business in the long run. You don't know them. Same thing for people that are entering new business realms. If you have the gut feeling you want to go with it, you might get a funding source that you know will burn you in 5 years. Not burn you based on how they relate, but they might have business ties. You have to move in a particular way. You don't know them. You don't know them. You have to have a standard. And so that's why Breach and Notes for Life and your production company and all the things that you've been involved in has literally shown the evolutionary path to say we have a standard. We know how we're going to operate. Nobody's perfect, but this is the standard as to who we operate with, and that's who we want to co-align with when it comes to business. And so, again, I'm going to simply ask you, from the tech boardroom to working with the artists, how did that happen? I'm going to bring it right back.
All right. Here's the best answer I could give to that. Our mind is always thinking about what's next, right? If we work with an artist today, it has to be an artist that can tell a complete story. And I say that, and this might be giving away too much, but this isn't the first time somebody has stolen from us, right? So how do you tell a story that can be appreciated these days? People aren't doing that on Spotify. They're not doing that on Apple Music. They're not doing that on Tidal. They're not doing that in streaming, which ultimately means they're really not doing that in music, but they should be. Stories are still being told. I can go on Netflix, and no matter how much they raise these prices, I still find myself paying it every month because I enjoy getting involved in a series or a film or films that have multiple parts. That's like the new wave. You know what I mean? So we look at that and we look at how no matter what, the pricing of video games hasn't changed. I can show you an ad from 96 with Nintendo 64, $59.99 for your cartridge. The art of storytelling when it comes to film and cinema hasn't really changed. In some ways, it's evolved. And they're not conceding on their medium. Why does music continue to concede? Why do we keep diluting what should be evolving? So that is the question, because we love music. And I kind of touched on this before, but how you consume music has to matter. People are bored with this. They don't realize it. They don't realize they're bored because it's convenient. And this is an era where people are going to choose convenience over thinking, because the less I have to think, that's like home automation. That's like the cars, everything. If I can automate it, that means that I have more time, because the propaganda is I don't have enough time in my day. We have enough time. We have enough time. We have the same amount of time. However, so when you look about how you think about how you should consume music and innovative ways to change that, what if someone is starting to tell a story, and this is an old model, right? What if somebody is telling a story and you change how they digest it and how they consume that story?
Producers, artists, listen up. Sorry, I had to cut you off right there. Just really understand the game that you're getting right now. Continue. Sorry.
Like, what if you don't know how to make people stay tuned to you with a shortened attention span? Look to the markets that are not affected by shortened attention spans. People play video games for 80 hours straight when it comes out because they're in campaign mode and they want to beat it. People will binge watch series and neglect everything else, including their kids, because they're so invested in it. Your music has to be that good. They're not checking for you because you're not giving them a reason to adjust their comfort. But if you can tell a story and give them a new experience, and let's say you put a headset on and you're walking them through this experience, which Breach, that's why we have 4 areas: learn, interact, create, and identify. And identify. And it's like, under our create and interact, we create these experiences. So we can't work with every artist. We can't work with every artist, recording artist, physical art, painting, no matter what. But the ones we can, it's because we can create what that VR experience looks like. So
So
now,
I'm sorry. So you're creating tracks specifically with the goal of going to new markets instead of the same. That's genius.
and what we do at this point, and it's disruptive because then you got to figure out. So I'll say it. I'll say it, but I trust you with the editing. With you look at the business models at work, people are paying $4.99 a month to watch their favorite streamer on Facebook or Twitch or whatever the case may be. If you change the business model of music and say, I'm not going to depend on these streams are going to be an extra, something extra. If I get it, cool. But if you are interesting enough as to where people can say, you know what, I'm going to pay that $4.99 a month for an upgradable and updatable experience, now you're on to something. This is without giving it. Well, we just announced it yesterday. Devo Stage, which is a part of Breach, creates VR and immersive experiences that connect spatial audio music albums with immersive experiences in VR and mixed reality. So and we've been working on this since Pokemon Go came out. That's 2016. We've been waiting for the time when the consumer confidence in VR and mixed reality was as high as it is now. People are purchasing at higher levels. Vision Pro is going to be what it's going to be, but that MetaQuest 3 actually works, and it's at a decent price point where you can compare it to an Xbox Series X or PS5. So you take all of that and you say, okay, the only thing that's missing at this point are artists who understand as well. And there's going to be a complete lack of those. It's not, the market is no longer oversaturated with artists that have talent and understanding. So if you find the artists that have talent, understanding, and confidence, and you have to have budget, and you have to be able to have resources to roll something like this out, well, it's an exciting time for Breach.
Well, shoot, it's an exciting time for producers who make lo-fi music, producers who make ambient music, producers who make a particular breed of hip hop, producers who make boom bap. Like the whole market is open.
And people, when we started looking at Netflix 5 years ago, spending $2 billion a year on just content, 4 billion, I think is what it was, 4 billion on content 5 years ago, because they just wanted to be able to really go all in. It was like, how much of that are they spending with music? And you found that number, it was like, this is what we have to do. Mm-hmm. They're not even there yet, to be honest. But from a marketing standpoint, it is a big difference when you're able to pitch to a sports team. Yeah, people can sit in the stands and watch the game. There's nothing like that. And people can watch on TV and get excited. But what if you could bring them together? What if you could put that headset on because it was attached to the head, to the cameras on the head of a fan that's there. So you feel like you're there. Like you get the feeling, you get the rumble, you get the audio. The drunk guy is yelling behind your head because that's where you would be at if you were in the dome. And you match that with sound tracking for music.
That's why you like Dolby Atmos mixing. That is why. And that's a bar. Oh my God. Thank you for sharing this. This is crazy good.
And that's why you get me staying with Logic, because Logic understood from the beginning. It's like freemium, right? Like they paid for this, but we haven't charged them in over 12 years. This is where it's going. And a company like Apple is not going to just put that in there unless they see where it's going, forecasting. So when you get an artist who understands, like Corey Four is the artist in residence at a company called Mosaic. And look up Mosaic one day, MOZAIC, whatever, or IAC. But you look up Mosaic and what they're doing in the commerce world in terms of creatives, and you match that with why they chose him to be the artist in residence, and you speak to him and how he's working and making songs. And then as an artist too, somebody sends you something and you send it back in 24 hours, you're making a really good impression. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did. So when you match his will, his drive with what the resources are at Breach and the opportunities that we're working on, which we did a beta last year and people didn't really see it, but we had the theme song for the Battlehawks last year with Wake the City Up, because we wanted to see what tweaks would need to be made for the next year. Okay, how should the sound in the stadium? St. Louis broke every record for the XFL last year for attendance records. It was just announced yesterday. The press conference we were at was to let people know that the championship will be in St. Louis this year. So that means not only will 40,000 people plus be in the dome for 5 weeks, the playoffs will be here too, which means travel, which means you're looking at 150,000 people, 200,000 people coming into town for these playoffs in the championship game. You match that with the star power of The Rock, who's back on regular programming on TV these days, wrestling, and the UFL becomes this really exciting thing. It's in our backyard. I'm stupid. Now, this is the other part as a producer. I'm stupid if I'm not up here making tracks. Like, forget all of that other stuff. I am stupid if I have the access and I have the knowledge of looking at what's coming and I'm not sitting up here working and making something. Or if Tiff isn't. So the funny thing, you listen to that, Tiff did the 808s on Big Knock. We ended up calling Big Knock because Corey heard it and was like, man, it's got to be called Big Knock. Tiff did that. Tiff did those 808s.
Hold on, but did she do those? Hold on. This gear nerd era.
No.
Did she do those 808s in Ableton or did she do those 808s with MPC?
I'll never tell.
That means it's Ableton. That means it's Ableton. You don't like Ableton? Like, come on.
I like Ableton.
Bro, I gotta get to St. Louis. When I show you how quick I can make a track in Ableton, it's gonna be crazy. I love Ableton. I just need to move on. I love it. I just need to move on.
I love it. I love Ableton. Yeah, but she I think she used the Novation keyboard that she has, the MIDI controller. I think she used that because the push 3 never showed. You know what I mean? And but yeah,
it's another conversation. Don't do it. But it's another conversation. Yeah, go ahead. Moving forward.
But she knocked it out, and no pun intended. But that's that opportunity. It's like we are really in that era where we get a chance to, because of all the work and the knowledge. It does not happen overnight. And I don't want anybody who ever watches this to think that's how this happened.
Oh no! If somebody watched this, they couldn't. The whole conversation between where you were at 2016-17 and then what you were being approached with in 2016-17, this ain't no overnight situation.
It's not overnight. But I guess what I'm saying to people is our whole mission has always been: don't think it's overnight, but it does not have to be lifelong either. If you just if you can look and piece together like interviews over the years, if somebody just took us who are at the bottom of top success, right? If somebody just took us, they could shave off 7 years of our 10-year journey, because there's been so much given as to where this is how you could do it to be effective. That's all we want at the end of the day, is for people to take this and go faster, go further, because our kids have to grow up. Your kids have to grow up. Our kids, the world better be in capable hands by the time they become of age. You know what I mean? We're doing what we need to do for our kids. It's that gap in between. And we can't afford for another generation that we spoke about to be lost, while they're figuring out. Learn. It's okay to learn. And I think that's ultimately why it came. We have to, it sounds so corny, you have to make learning exciting again.
Well, it's not corny. It's true.
And you have to make learning exciting. That includes what's being taught. Because I'll be damned if my kids are smarter than the adults. You know what I mean? Like, the adults have to be capable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, man, that's
no, it's not a but anyway, yo. Thank you. You just literally lumped so many gems in the past 5 minutes. Listen, he knows me in real life, right? Everybody, if I'm shutting up, there's jewels being dropped. I'm just gonna tell you straight up. And again, if anybody watching this knew me in real life, I don't like BSers. Do you understand what I'm saying? I abhor them. Look up the dictionary for those people watching what abhor means. I don't like them. He just gave producers literal great current stratagem and showed an entire journey. His journey is not your journey, not my journey, but a journey. The fruits of the journey, how the journey was birthed, how you need to look at different markets, how you need to think, and how you need to get out of the urban music production box, which is not a bad thing. I'm not here to say that it's a negative thing. I think this show should be called Producers: How to Effectively Diversify Your Portfolio and Business. That's really what I might call it. But it's just true, because think about what you just said. We start the conversation talking about your love of Logic and why you like spatial audio. From that time to where you came now, you rounded the ship. That's why. The VR, that's why stadiums, that's why opportunities. That, like, again, producers watching this, stop looking in the limited mindset of, okay, I make a beats on my MPC, I make a beats on this one DAW, and that's it. Or I gotta reach out to an art, and there's no problem with having a journey, but understanding what he's saying, what he shared and blessed us with today, that there are multiple avenues to what you might refer to as success, but there is different successful paths outside of the usual beaten trail of one area, especially in this current streaming market, which you're not going to get into. That's another show entirely, which I might have a forum for. But I just want to really thank you for coming on this show right now. And really, it's hard to impress me, but
I want to say
strategic.
one thing. I
So,
want to
real
say
quick, I'm not cutting you off.
no.
It's really
I
hard
want
to be impressed
because
impressed with strategem, but I'm impressed. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
again, the origin is you. So if you are impressed,
Oh
just
man.
know that's you. You know what I mean? This is you in a different manifestation. That's all this is, man.
I think, thank you. I just think that we met each other and the universe and God blessed us to share information and we grew. Like I say, I'm always big about nature. You meet people, you get seeds, you have to plant the seeds like you did. You had to water the seeds like you did. You had to watch it grow like you did. And you grew so many opportunities from just information. And see, that's the difference between people who are doing it and people who aren't doing it.
The
You
truth
grab
is,
the information and learn from it.
I didn't have water. Tiff was water. I didn't have water. And people are going to have to figure out who is their water, what's their water. That's that's the other part. Because I was planting seeds and the shit was, the ground was just dry forever. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what it is. That's that point where things change. I will say this, as a producer, I think the reason why I conceded to things like Breach and Notes for Life, because now music is back in Breach, full scale. But the reason I conceded to is because I knew my limitations, and my limitations used to piss me off. And those limitations were, I can have the greatest concept in the world. I can put together the best lyrics because I produce and write. My referencing, as you can hear by this scratchy throat, sucks. I can't sing. You know what I mean? And I had to wait for technology to get to a place as to where my limitations were no longer limitations. So now I can get by enough, right, to get my point across. If I have to do a reference for a R&B or pop, because that's kind of where I stay in. If I do rap has to make sense, like Johnny Wayne, Corey Ford, or something like that. Technology now, I can take my vocals and I can do, vocal diffusion. I can do an AI reference track. So now, where it was minimum before that I could get my ideas across, because again, you got to wait. And even with reference singers, if you're not conveying it perfectly, and some reference singers want to put their own spice, and you're like, no, I know how this needs to be. And using AI and being able to use that and incorporate AI into my tool belt has opened up the world even more. And I can't wait for people to kind of start seeing and hearing that, because my bad, go ahead.
No, I'm literally about to continue that.
And
No, I'm gonna ask you a quick question, and it falls right in line with what you're talking about. For producers who may not know, how can AI be used as an effective and a tool for their career that is ethical?
people are lazy. I'll say that. People at the corporate level are extremely lazy. Um, they want things that are presented to them to be buttoned up. And if it's not at 90 to 95%, you're losing to the person that has it all buttoned up. Even if it doesn't sound as good, if it's not as good, they don't have to do the work. It's a societal thing. It's a whole different thing. If you're able, we were talking about this yesterday too. It's not about AI taking over and replacing you. It's about, how do you leverage AI to enhance who you already are? And your prompt, like, get your prompt skills up. Learn how to still control AI. It's a tool. It's not an extinction level event. And those who know how to prompt well, because prompting is going to be the new buzzword. For 10 years ago, everything was coding. We've done all the coding. Like, Lord, Breach, we've taught a lot of things. No, we never did coding. Why? Why are we going? We'll send you someplace. If you want to be a coder, we'll send you. But it was because we knew there's going to come a day I can type into Copilot or something and say, I need the code for blah, blah, blah. And it's going to give it back in 3 seconds.
For real quick, for those who don't know what prompting is information that you put into an AI platform to get you information and data back. For instance, if producers are like, types in a prompt correctly, and I forgot what it is, I forgot what the usual people have the different prompt strategies on, you can type in, you're a music producer seeking to create a 95 BPM track that is brooding, has horror sounds, but that has a pop funky twang to it at 8-bar measures, and I would like the key for this information. The information you get out, you'll be like, oh, this is great. This is a starter. You know what I'm saying? This is a starter. But prompting is the effective information that you put in to get AI out to help you as a tool, as Ronnie said, to enhance what you already have.
Exactly. So when we look at that, it's just kind of like, if you can do that well, it just complements who you already are. And it makes you, it evolves you. Because me being able to utilize and leverage AI to be able to do that has evolved me as a producer to the point I'm excited to sit down with this thing now. And I'm sorry, Frank will tell you, I wasn't a fan of this thing when it first came.
The MPC Key 61? Why not?
Yeah, it could be my learning curve. The last MPC I had was the MPC Ren, and I had a bad experience with the MPC Ren, the Renaissance or whatever. I love this thing now. I don't love it as much as I should, but I love this thing now. It's still, it's my number 2 in my belt, but before you asked me this last year, it would have been my number 6. So I'm learning how to leverage I'm learning to leverage the differences that it brings to everything that I use to make things stand out more, to make things bigger, to make things, to differentiate myself from this oversaturated world of being a producer. But anyway, I say that to say, learn how to add AI to your tool belt. That's just how I do it. Someone else may take it and say, you know what? I can use AI like this. Don't let AI do all the work for you.
Yeah, because you're going to find yourself in a horrible situation if you're in person at a studio session and you can't do what you produced and sent.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. Producers, don't lean too much on AI. That if you're in a studio with the person you dreamed of being in an actual recording studio with, and they sit you in front of your MIDI controller and your laptop, and you cannot replicate what you emailed, you're going to look like a huge sucker, like real talk.
And, and it's just, it sucks. But we talked about talent being, kind of thinned out. Because what's going to happen, people should be lucky that the Dolby Atmos boom hasn't happened yet. Because major labels are, they're requesting a spatial mix standard these days. But what happens when most of your cars come with spatial audio? Or what happens when everything turns spatial? That home studio isn't as powerful as it once was. So start learning about it now. This isn't like in the early 2010s when every TV was boasting about VR glasses or 3D glasses, and the Hollywood just dropped the ball and said, we're not going to do 3D movies as much as we planned on it. This is different. This is much different because you can look at different mediums. I can do spatial audio. This could have been broadcast in spatial audio. We both have the spatial audio mics. What I watch on Netflix, when you see Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, and all these things, your experiences are enhancing. What happens when 8K TVs are as cheap as 4K TVs? You know what I mean? Those are the things that you got to look at. How is the tech moving, and how can I move with the tech as a producer who may know nothing about it? I just have to look at the things I already immerse myself with and notice the changes. Oh, this used to say 5.1. Why does it say Dolby Atmos now? This used to just say blah, blah, blah. Now it has Dolby Vision. What did that change mean? What are those changes? Okay, and then you want to go a little bit further, go to those conferences, watch the master classes, watch the YouTubes, Watch the seminars on the evolution of the technology that's not just here, but is forecasted to be in the future. Incorporate those technological advancements into your production mindset. So when you go to work with an artist, don't just sit down at your desk and make beats all day. Have a strategic plan with the artist you're working with. Spend the time with that artist, and do not become one of the FOMO people. You never have a fear of missing out. You're always going to miss out on something. You might as well forget about that. Build in, lock in with one vision, and do not go away from your goal and your vision. It pays off. It pays off.
Brother, it pays off because when we were last around each other, you had a rolling MC. What was it? 707? Is that a 707?
MC. It's around here somewhere. Rolling MC 505.
And now look at what's behind you. You went from a rolling MC 505 to look what's behind you. So again, the proof is in the tangible pudding. That's a pause, but that's the other conversation. The proof is in the pudding.
No, that's real.
But think about it. MC 505 to look what's around you. Think about that. And sometimes, like, I'm not having you to remind you about how far you've come, even though you've thought about this. But think about it from the mindset of a person who met you like over 20 years ago. I'm loving this because nothing excites me more than seeing somebody's passion grow into a family providing business that helps people. And I'm really thankful you came on my show. There's going to be a lot of producers going to benefit from this. There's so much stuff you said. I'm going to be clipping up for days, but thank you. But before you leave off the show and we end the show, what are like 5 pieces of advice among the 50 you already gave that you just want to just really have producers lock on and remember from what you shared today?
Number 1, trust yourself. Trust yourself. If you're a person that holds yourself accountable, you owe it to yourself to trust yourself. Even when everyone in the room tells you you're wrong, trust yourself. Because you just may need to switch the room you're in. It's not always, they say, if everybody says it, it must be me. That's not the case. Sometimes you just walked in the wrong room. I was at a panel discussion one day recently, and the CEO of this company said, he was at one, and he learned that your mistakes in life should be looked at as tuition. Don't look at a failure as a failure. Look at it as tuition. Do you want to pay for the same class twice? Should be the question you ask yourself. And that stuck with me. I'm like, I'm not spending money twice on the class. So let me figure out what I need to do. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing either. Like, that's how we end up with diluted Kool-Aid. Because if you hear a sound that's out, if you go in the studio because you're inspired by a sound that's out today, you're too late. It's okay to be an innovator. This world is built on innovators. It's not built on replicators. Replicators work for the innovators. So ultimately, what do you want to do? That's 3. Surround yourself with a good team, even if it's a team of 2. Because you cannot, should not, we're not built here. Nothing on this world were you made to do alone. Look at how we're born. You know what I mean? It's always going to take 2, right? So it will take at least 2.
And last,
when you realize that you did, and I said this at the panel, this is what they asked me what was a closing thing or advice I could give. And I'll say it here too, because you have a bigger platform. When you realize that you have lost the passion for that which you were passionate about, no matter what it is, remove yourself and make room for those who are passionate for it. I don't care if that's in your business, if that's in your life, your friendship, marriage, where you go to church, whatever the case is, your food, things you're not passionate about. You're not here to just be stagnant. Make room for somebody or those that are passionate about it, because ultimately you're stifling your growth in theirs. You're in the way, and you're in the way of yourself many times. So when the passion is gone and you cannot reinvigorate it, get out, because there's something else that you are going to be passionate about that is waiting for you to show up. So
there's something else that you're passionate about that's waiting for you to what?
Show up.
That's a bar. Yo, I'm not gonna lie. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, yeah, tell some things to inspire some producers. And why are you here inspiring the crap out of me right now, having me thinking about things differently? I'm just sitting here like, it's my man, Ronnie, but this is facts. This is my homeboy, but it made me look at myself in certain angles of what I'm trying to do. Like, it's a new season. It's a new era. I love this, man. I really appreciate you for doing
never
this.
Shown me Scarface. For those who don't know, I never saw Scarface till I met Frank. So
listen, it was a required New York viewing as a child. It was required viewing, like, you know what I mean. But thank you so much. Please drop your socials and all the information where people can reach you.
I'm Ronnie Notch on everything. At Ronnie Notch, RONNIENOTCH.
And this is breach.com.
This is breach.com. That gets you where you need. I promise we own the company. We don't put ourselves on the website because we're not bigger than the work.
That's a bar. That's a good bar. Thank you so much, Mr. Notch. I'm quite Mr. Notch like that. Thanks for coming on this show. Most definitely. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to sharing this information because people need to know. Thanks again, brother. Everybody watching this, please subscribe to all the links that I'll have in this video of this brother's work. Please take the information that he said and apply it. Please utilize it and play it to inspire you to move to change. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, everybody, for taking part. Have a great one. Peace, and we're out.